Hello and welcome to Exploring Body Mapping with Dr. Kate. I am Dr. Kate. It's so wonderful to have you here, coming to you from my son's bedroom, as I'm sure many of us are coming from different and interesting spaces in the current landscape of the world. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. If you are here, it means you are interested in exploring and learning more about the body mapping process. And I'm going to explain more about body mapping history, its background, its different uses and applications, and how it's used in research and education and social justice initiatives. And it's a really wonderful, interesting method that has a very rich and deep history and we are starting to see it proliferate a little bit more across different academic disciplines and into different community groups and social spaces. And I'm really excited to share more about this wonderful method with you. So I'll take a few minutes to tell you about it, and then I'll share and invite you to engage in some more resources as well. So that you can continue your interest and exploration. You will see images throughout this presentation that are from body mapping workshops that I was facilitating at the UW-Madison campus with students across disciplines. And this video is a accompaniment to the body mapping arts exhibit that you can also find on the conference webpage. And so I'm delighted to have this be sort of a how-to background follow-up accompanying that arts exhibit video for the 4W and Women's and Gender Studies Consortium annual conference this year, Gender Change and the Arts. So you will see various body mapping images throughout this video that are the creations from the body mapping workshops that I was conducting with UW-Madison students. So let's dive right into more of an exploration of what body mapping is. This is a definition that I think works really well. I really like it for its clarity and context. So what is body mapping? Body mapping is a research method that has been used to tell a story that visually reflects social, political, and economic processes, as well as individuals' embodied experiences and meanings attributed to their life circumstances that shape who they have become. And that is from a body mapping guide, Gastaldo and other authors from 2012, and I'll be sharing these resources at the end of the presentation as well. So I think this definition is really wonderful in the sense that it connects the mind, body, social element all together, in that we all have a body. It is the common denominator of existence, is embodied experience, and in that way, bodies have been conceptualized and understood as being deeply personal, deeply individual, but also very much social entities. We have relationships with other bodies. We come into contact with other bodies. Our bodies experience the world and navigate the world through various social arenas and institutions. So in that way, bodies are both public and private. They are both personal and social, and they are inherently political in the sense that our bodies experience systems of power, that we are a part of systems of power. So what body mapping can do as a method in exploring different elements of embodiment through different guiding questions and ideas and facilitations is that it can allow us to explore more dynamically and in a different way what those embodied experiences are, and paying attention to different sensations in the body, and making sense of some of our experiences, and things that may often go unseen or unspoken can be manifested and brought to life through a body mapping experience and a visual expression. So it's about exploring history and background and the experiences that a person has undergone in terms of their embodiment, And it's a wonderful method that can be used across different applications and different disciplines. So some of the history of body mapping, and I'll offer more sources at the end as well if folks are interested in learning more. But essentially, it has its early roots in Jamaica in the late 1980s and in the United Kingdom as well, with cisgender women exploring reproductive elements of their bodies in sort of in cross comparison with each other and cross cultural comparison. And then in South Africa in the early 2000s, and these are not necessarily connected. The South African body mapping workshops that were conducted were not necessarily connected to or affiliated with what was going on in Jamaica in the late 1980s, but there are central tenes and ideas that are brought through in terms of the body mapping history. So it's really has its established history in the early 2000s in South Africa, and whole body mapping was done to document the life experiences of people who were living with HIV. And there can be different ways of doing this. Traditionally and conventionally speaking, body mapping has been done with people having their bodies outlined and traced on large pieces of paper. And then they are given guided questions and facilitations to fill in that body map through a workshop experience, generally speaking. The way that my workshops have run with UW-Madison and the student populations at UW-Madison is a little different in the sense that it does not have to be the whole body map. I'm offering a little bit more creative freedom in terms of how body maps are manifesting, and you'll see some more examples of those in images throughout. And if you watch our exhibit video, those are all the body maps that have been produced and created by our participants. So in many ways, there's some fluidity with the method and how it can be interpreted and understood, but the body is really at the center of it, at the focus of it, and the self, and expression of the embodied self in this visual format. And it has been largely designed to challenge dominant forms of knowledge production. We have really significant hierarchies of knowledge production, especially in the West, that seem to center objectivity, value-free knowledge association. And what body mapping does is center experience in more deliberate ways. So it's about centering experiences of those things that go unspoken or unseen for marginalized populations, in particular surrounding things like health and trauma and abuse and illness and addiction. So it does have foundational therapeutic principles to bring to light and illuminate some of the collective experiences that people undergo in certain areas of embodiment, but also to draw out those things that are occurring on a personal or an interpersonal level and allowing people to process them through this visual medium that really emphasizes creativity and play and coming to it and stepping away from it and making the process yours. So there is no element of needing to produce anything in any particular way other than a visual rendering and manifestation of the body and an exploration of bringing the mind and body and self all together. So it's rooted in Indigenous knowledge and practice. It's been adapted across different spaces and environments, and it has a very strong history of social justice because bodies are social, they are political. And so every application that we have seen over the past few decades in which body mapping has seen sort of more of a rise to prominence in the mainstream and within academia as a mode of participatory action research, usually has this social justice component depending on what the body mapping methodology is exploring in that context. And it does have at its foundation therapeutic principles. So that's really important when thinking about body mapping. So what does body mapping offer? It offers an opportunity to holistically blend mind, body, and social context. We don't often pay attention to embodied experience in many ways. And so it's a way of producing new knowledge and shared knowledge, especially if you create a body map in a group context as part of a workshop or as part of a peer facilitated workshop experience or group experience. It can increase self-awareness and awareness of embodied experience, and also really draw out those personal and political connections of interrogating and thinking about what's happening in the social world that relates to our bodies. And it's a way to render real that which may have been silenced, and a way to shed light on manifestations of oppression and inequality. So when we think about all of the things that a body undergoes in daily life and in larger experiences, health-related experiences, traumatic experiences, body mapping offers a gentle and playful and creative way to get in touch with those experiences and explore them in a way that goes beyond some of the restrictions of language that we have. Although language is certainly used in the manifestation and creation of body maps. But it also offers an opportunity for this visualization of embodied experience. So what is creating a body map like? What are the components of that? What is the process include? So creating a body map can be a really wonderful individual enterprise, as well as doing it in more of a group setting or a workshop setting. And the way that I have my participants go about it in terms of some of that fluidity of creativity is to use any and all materials that you wish to represent different feelings of embodiment, to be playful in interpretation of the creation of the map. I also encourage my participants to spend as much time or as little time as they wish on creating a map, on creating a body map, and often it will result in people spending more time than they thought on it, because it is a distinct activity and process that is different from generally our day-to-day experiences. So it can be a really wonderful and meaningful opportunity to come to something and create something visual, but also to take breaks, to pause, to reflect, to accompany the body map with some written reflection as well. And this is really not at all about artistic skill or having the map look a certain way or creating it for anybody other than yourself. That said, it can also be very powerful to share the map, but it's also a really wonderful opportunity to let go of the idea that it has to look a certain way or it has to be produced for some specific reason. It can be an opportunity to just be present in the process of paying attention to your embodied experiences and making something that's just for you, and whether you return to it and reflect on it individually, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute, or if you explore it in a group setting, in a shared setting. So these are just some guiding ideas to consider in making a body map. How does your body feel in its environment? Where do you feel emotion? How does your body feel sensations like fear or safety or comfort? And reflecting on what happens in your body in a physiological sense when you feel those things. Reflecting on spaces that your body moves through. What do you pay attention to regarding your body when it's occupying different spaces? Reflecting on when your body comes into contact with other people. Thinking about all of the different identities and intersections that you have. What makes you you, and how would you represent those on your map? And then paying attention to things like sensations, sights, smells, sounds, emotions, and physical responses. Those things that we sort of cast aside or don't often pay attention to in embodied experience, in bringing those to the fore and doing some reflection and thinking about how would I visually manifest that. And in many ways, this has the opportunity to create space for people to bring something out of their body, to approach it in a different way, to be mindful or shed light on things that they have been carrying around, because our bodies feel experiences, and they inhabit those experiences and carry them around. So a body map can be a really wonderful way to create space for reflection and for consideration for ourselves. So after creating a body map, if you are reflecting upon the process with yourself or with others, here are just some recommendations and ideas for this. Journaling is a really wonderful way of reflecting on it, stepping away from the map and coming back to it. Recording your thoughts verbally or vocally can be a wonderful way to process the map and process the mapping process itself. Creating another map is a really wonderful way to explore different feelings surrounding embodiment in different contexts. Engaging in mindfulness exercises, including meditation, for example, a body scan meditation. If you are reflecting and processing with a group of people, I strongly encourage the creation of community guidelines and expectations, ensuring that everybody has space that is being held for them, and that all identities are being acknowledged, welcomed, and celebrated within that space. And absolutely that there may be difficult content that comes to the fore, difficult themes that come to the fore in the processing of a body map and the body mapping experience. So it can be really important to ground yourself and to create a centering exercise and build in time for reflection. But it can be a tremendously powerful experience to engage with each other's maps and share them and identify these shared themes and experiences can heighten that sense of self, that self-care and community care and awareness and empathy that can come with this process. Support and resources are a really important component to this in terms of it being a therapeutic principle foundational exercise. So thinking about how body mapping can elicit those complex emotions and can touch upon hard or even traumatic themes. So ensuring that you have support from trusted social networks, from healthcare practitioners or other support services in your community. And here I've just offered the University Health Services, if you are UW affiliated, UW-Madison affiliated. This is their website and also a direct line. Just in that process, it's important to have possibilities of support and community support people around you. So in the sense of why we do this and why body mapping matters, some of it is really surrounding these exploratory aspects of the reality that we all have a body and that we are experiencing the world and navigating our social worlds through the body as mediator of our experiences. Our bodies matter. They matter tremendously in terms of the different spaces that they occupy, the space that we take up, that we don't take up, the different intersections of our identities and all of the politics therein, those systems of power that we exist within. So one of the primary reasons that I think body mapping can be so powerful, not only for the self, but for the community, is towards this understanding of empathy, of possible reconciliation, of recognizing that we all have a body and we carry experiences in different ways, sometimes in shared ways, and that there can be very collective themes surrounding that experience. So I'd like to end this with a quote from author and body advocate, fierce body advocate, Sonia Renee Taylor, who's the founder of The Body Is Not an Apology. And Sonia Renee Taylor writes, "When we liberate ourselves from the expectation that we must have all things figured out, we enter a sanctuary of empathy." And I think this is just a wonderful way to think about what body mapping can offer when we do something that is just for ourselves and creating something that is just for ourselves. We enter into this space of challenging these dominant paradigms of needing to produce, needing to create, needing to make something that is for some kind of benefit or gain outside of ourselves. But when we start with the self and that exploration, it create so much more room for self-care, but also in care for our communities. So thank you so much for watching this and considering body mapping as a method, as an exercise, as a process that you're interested in. And I'd like to just share some sources with you before we wrap up. And if you have any questions or are interested in learning more, please contact me at kphelps@wisc.edu or at UW-Mapping-Embodiment@gmail.com. So thank you all so much, and onward the journey in your embodied experience.